From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
And now at 5:30, putting a spotlight on the importance of getting the coronavirus vaccine, how the state is using one of the biggest sporting events of the year to get the word out. And free homework help for Hoosier students. It's in high demand with so many kids learning online. The service getting some big money to help even more kids. Chris?
Topping our lineup, companies are changing how returns work with so many of us shopping online during the pandemic. What this means for getting you a refund. And the debate continues over the size of the next stimulus package. What economists say history shows us about the effectiveness of massive government aid packages. And grades from the first half of the school year are now proof of the challenges that kids have had with remote learning. What experts are saying schools could be using this technology for that could be more effective.
First at 5:30, spreading the message to a huge audience about the importance of doing your part to help stop the spread of coronavirus and get the vaccine. When you watch the Super Bowl on Sunday, expect to see a message from the State of Department of Health. During the governor's weekly coronavirus briefing today, a portion of the commercial and its production were shown. The ad that will air statewide during the game features the family of Paul Logan, the longtime North Central High School athletic director who lost his battle with COVID-19 in April. His widow, Kathy, also joined today's briefing. The governor called the message you'll hear from Logan's son, Will, compelling and make a long-lasting difference.
Everybody's got to wear a mask, stay 6 feet, and just by doing that, it can save a lot of people, and where people don't have to suffer through pain, where losing someone in life. And I know a lot of people know that feeling. When my dad was sick in the hospital, that was the longest 12 days of my life. Just sitting there not knowing each morning if he's alive. I want to tell people, like, this is serious, and this vaccine will save people.
That was what Paul was about. He was always put others first, always before himself, whether it was the student athletes or the parents or the community. He was always very much concerned on what others thought and what others needed to do. And even though he can't be here right now with us, I kind of feel like this is his way of working through the children. All three of them have done a phenomenal job on everything that they've been asked to do.
The governor said the cost to air the ad is about $123,000 and comes from Federal CARES Act funding, which can be used for communication. And he said spending money in this way is, quote, worth every single penny. Kyle?
We have got a beautiful view of that sun over downtown Indianapolis. We had a lot of sunshine out there today. You notice a few more clouds that are starting to roll into the Hoosier State here, but temperatures heading in the right direction at the moment. We're a few degrees warmer than this time yesterday, about 6 degrees warmer in Indy as well as Bloomington. About the same for you in Lafayette at 1 degree warmer than this time yesterday. That puts us all in the 30s, 35 degrees right now in Indianapolis, 30 in Kokomo and 37 in Bloomington. Now, fortunately, that west and south wind is fairly light, so not too much of a wind chill out there. There's a few more of those clouds, though, you can see back across Illinois sliding our way. Not expecting any precipitation from those, but they are ahead of the next weather system, and we'll notice some changes as we go into tonight. Initially, those temperatures will drop down into the mid-20s here as we reach midnight, but then they'll hold steady, maybe slowly come up a couple degrees here as we go into tomorrow morning. So we'll start off tomorrow in the 20s. If you think that's cold, just look at this. By Friday morning, we're going to get those lows to around 20 degrees, and then early next week, Monday's low temperature at 4. And we got a cold wind to go with it. Just how much colder that's going to make it feel in just a few minutes. Chris?
New information out this week about who has received the vaccine so far. According to CDC data, white Americans received the largest portion of vaccines. They made up 60% of those who have received the shot between December and January. African Americans made up only 5.4%. Hispanics made up more than 11% of those who have received the vaccine. And now groups are figuring out how to make sure minorities get the right information so they want to get vaccinated. Unidos US is a Latino advocacy organization, and their experts say that the Latino community has a huge need for the vaccine.
Latinos are essential workers. They're out in jobs, putting themselves at risk and their families at risk, they have seen firsthand the impact that COVID has made on their livelihood as well as their family.
Now, getting the vaccine will provide protection for these communities, but many Latinos are hesitant to get it for a number of reasons. In general, the community has a lot of questions about the safety and efficacy of the vaccine. Also, family plays a huge part in Latino cultures, but it also plays into one of the concerns among Latino women.
One of the myths is, does the vaccine, impact my childbearing, if I'm in childbearing years in terms of my chromosomes or things like that. And so these are facts that we need to be sure that our communities are well aware about the efficacy around the vaccine.
Now, that's why Unidos US says it is important to have trusted sources within the community to spread correct and accurate information about the vaccine. Trusted sources can be community health workers.
Community health workers that live in the community, breathe in the community, and really are having the same, issues and understand the lived experiences of our communities and can be able to help facilitate a peer-to-peer approach to educate them about the vaccine and information of where to go, how to go about it, and make appointments.
Now, doctors are also seen as a trusted source, but they may not be able to reach people without health insurance. Unidos US says there's also a language barrier. They say this is why it is important to have a bilingual hotline available, but also information that's not only available in Spanish, but it's culturally relevant. Also making sure this information isn't only available online, since not everyone has internet access. All right, still ahead in our lineup, companies are changing how returns work with so many of us shopping online during the pandemic. What this means for you getting a refund.
Welcome back. The Rebound Indiana is connecting you to resources to get you and your family through the pandemic. And with more kids learning online, tutoring help has been in high demand. Now the Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology's free homework hotline has received a major grant to help even more students. Homework help has been in high demand as students switched to and from remote learning during the pandemic. That has kept tutors with the Ask Rose Homework Help Service busy. For 2 decades, Ask Rose has provided math and science homework help for students in grades 6 through 12. Brian Passwater is a math teacher at Speedway High School. He wants his students to utilize this free service.
I would encourage a lot of my students to do it. Mainly, I thought, okay, this is like, younger students, like Algebra 1, Geometry. They can really help with even these advanced courses, too. It wasn't sort of just a middle school, early high school type program. At
a time when students are getting less in-person FaceTime with their teachers, Mr. Passwater says Ask Rose is stepping in to help as classrooms adapt.
So there's going to be even more frustration, more confusion, and having that resource there when they're doing it, I think is going to take away, not everything, all the issues, but it's going to provide a lot of support and bridge a lot of gaps, I think.
In spring of 2020, when students were sent home for e-learning, Ask Rose saw more than a 60% increase in tutoring help.
A lot of our strong students, average students, and certainly at-risk students who might struggle, is going to keep them in the game where I think they would fall through the cracks otherwise.
Ask Rose received a $1.46 million Lilly Endowment grant to expand their online technology. Lindsay Hull is the Associate Director of Operations and Education for Ask Rose. She says this grant will allow them to add video chat to the calls.
You're in a call with somebody, you're helping them, and you really want them to see the diagram you've drawn so that you can explain this chemical structure to them. Now through video chat, you can take the call, transition it to a video chat, and you'll be able to see the student. They can see you can see what each other are working on.
Whether it be through online chat, phone call, or coming in spring, video chat, these tutors are just a call away to help keep Hoosier students from falling behind.
The tutors are all college kids, so they were just in high school, middle school a few years ago, and they have chosen to come help people. So they're really nice. They want to help. They want to make a difference for the students. So we're here for them. We're here to help.
And Rose-Hulman students are the tutors. Hull also encourages parents to call in if they need help in assisting with their child's schoolwork. Ask Rose expanded its tutoring hours last fall with the need for homework help increasing due to the pandemic. For their hours and how to reach out, check out this story on WRTV.com.
With more people shopping online, companies are having to revamp how they handle some returns. In fact, more businesses are refunding customers without even getting items back.
Companies can't handle this level of returns. It's very expensive for them to process all of these returns. So they're looking for alternatives. So what we're hearing more and more is retailers saying, instead of mailing back this item, please donate it or even toss it. If an item arrives to you and it's damaged at all,
well, it all boils down to value. Does it make sense for a company to possibly cover shipping and repackaging for something big that is damaged or something small and inexpensive? Instead, they may just tell you to toss or donate the item and still refund your money. But don't think this is something that people can take advantage of very often.
So you really can't fool them or trick them into stealing items, because once you have made a number of returns, they can blacklist you from making further returns. So it's not a way of just getting items for free. You want to be honest, and you might have to show proof that you've made that donation too. So you have to keep track of all of your receipts.
Now, NerdWallet's personal finance expert says some companies are offering the chance to donate or throw away unwanted items up front, but it doesn't hurt to ask either. One thing you want to make sure you do on any item you buy online is keep the packaging in case you have to send it back. It saves you money, so you don't have to buy new packaging. The NBA will start requiring players to wear a KN95 or KF94 mask. Sources tell ESPN the policy will go into effect next week. Players will need to wear the masks in all instances where they are required, including when they're sitting on the bench. The NBA is currently making sure all 30 teams have masks. But we do have more to get to in our lineup. The debate continues over the size of the next stimulus package. What economists say history shows us about the effectiveness of massive government aid packages. The pandemic has been an isolating experience for so many of us. It's even more so for people who have been waiting months, sometimes years, for an organ transplant. But as Maya Rodriguez explains, technology is helping bring that community of patients closer together.
For Megan Smith, the journey to get to her 20s was far from easy.
Started getting sick when I was about 19 years old, and I went to a bunch of different doctors, and they really couldn't figure out kind of what was going on with me.
But then her younger brother got sick too. Doctors discovered an unusual genetic anomaly that required both to get liver transplants. Megan's eventual donor, her uncle, who was a perfect match. But despite the support of her family, Megan still felt isolated.
Unless you've been in this really unique situation, it's hard to understand what is going through, what that person's going through, but not only physically, but also just mentally.
In the U.S. alone, there are about 114,000 people awaiting an organ transplant. About 39,000 patients get a transplant each year. The rest wait. Every day, though, 20 people die waiting for a transplant. But now a new online platform called Transplant Life is looking to offer hope.
It's not just about surviving with a transplant, it's about thriving.
A double transplant recipient herself, Karin Hienberger partnered with biotech company CSL Behring to start Transplant Life to help connect transplant patients with resources and each other.
Most people who go through the transplant process feel very much alone in the process and confused. And this is a way for them to connect and share experiences and learn from one another.
It's useful in the era of COVID-19, which has further isolated people. But even beyond the pandemic, transplant patients are often on immunosuppressants and have to be careful with whom they interact with in person. For Megan Smith, having a virtual way to find people her own age who are dealing with transplants is making a big difference.
But I'm just in a very different life place when it comes to working and, dating and all that kind of stuff. So being able to connect with other people in my age group to discuss these things has been so nice, especially during the pandemic when you can't connect with other people.
A group of people to lean on the road to recovery. I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Temperatures only in the 30s today, but I actually cracked the window open a little bit on the way in. With the winter coat and that sunshine that we had coming through the window, warmed things up pretty nicely. We've got to check out there if some of that snow that continues to melt away around Speedway. Temperature-wise, we got a range 29 for you in Peru and Tipton, while you're at 39 in Bedford. And temporarily, some warmer temperatures are going to win out for us as we go into the day tomorrow. There we've got the cloudy skies as we go through the morning. Midday today, 36. Going to be a little breezy, that southeast wind at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. And then as we get into the afternoon, there's that chance of rain, possibly a few snowflakes that mix in. I think the better chance of that as you travel north of Indy and I-70 here. There's a look at TrueCast as we go through the middle of the day. It's really early afternoon. We start to see that rain overspreading the region, but there you can see some of that snow mixing in around Monticello, Logansport, and Peru. And again, we may see a little bit of that here, especially north of Indy. But then as we go into the evening, this is a pretty quick moving system. So between about 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon and 11 o'clock tomorrow night, the wet weather will move through. As far as any snow is concerned, that will be very light, a ½ inch or less, and a lot of that will probably melt pretty quickly. But then we've got an Arctic blast of air that's going to be settling in, and for several days. Temperatures that will top out only at 29 on Friday, 26 Saturday, and we continue to fall from there, just 17 by Sunday. Checking out that extended forecast, we've got dry weather here for the end of the week. As we get into Saturday night, another system that could bring some light accumulating snow to the area, and that just kind of reinforces the cold air, not only for the afternoons, but those morning temperatures going to be in the single digits as we get into Sunday and Monday morning. Chris?
The Justice Department has dismissed its discrimination lawsuit against Yale. Last year, it was found that the university was illegally discriminating against Asian Americans and white applicants. The DOJ has not explained why it's dropping the case. A judge must still sign off on it. Now, a restaurant in Colorado is helping its employees by going tipless. Owners of Good Neighbors established a no-tip system in order to give employees raises. That change means higher prices on menu items, but customers don't have to worry about a tip. Workers say the new system gives them consistency.
I've never been able to make a budget before because I didn't know what my paychecks were going to look like. They sometimes fluctuate $100. So it's nice being able to. I've actually, this past week, spent a lot of time building a budget.
Now, according to the nonprofit One Fair Wage, more than 80% of workers surveyed say their tips have declined significantly since the pandemic started. The Biden administration has proposed a $1.9 trillion stimulus package. Republicans say that's too costly of a package, and they want to trim significantly. But what perspective do people who study the economy have overall? Lisa Nieves spoke with lead economists and found an overwhelming majority have come to the same conclusion.
A $1.9 trillion stimulus package could be the next major aid aimed at helping the U.S. economy recover. The new stimulus bill is being backed by a Democratic majority in Congress, but questioned by most Republicans. They're worried about its price. Cutting through possible partisan positions, top economists are weighing in.
$1.9 trillion is roughly equivalent to 9% of the overall GDP of the U.S. economy, so a fairly large package. And it comes on the back of over $3 trillion of stimulus in 2020.
Gregory Dacko is a chief U.S. economist at Oxford Economics, a leader in global forecasting and quantitative analysis. Dacko agrees the amount of aid the government is proposing and has already dished out is unprecedented.
We have to remember that the conditions that we're living through are unprecedented too.
But from a purely economic standpoint, the U.S. can't afford the $1.9 trillion bill.
The U.S. government can borrow money at incredibly low rates right now, basically negative real yields. So from that point of view, we can certainly afford it. We can pay it back later. So that's not a problem. It still comes off to trade-offs, right? Will it stimulate enough growth to make it worthwhile?
Both Kyle Anderson, an economist at the Kelley School of Business, and Dacko at Oxford agree the proposed package is priced right to boost the economy, spurring job growth and an economic recovery potentially to pre-pandemic levels by the third quarter of 2021. In fact, a recent Reuters poll showed 90% of economists around the country believe the $1.9 trillion stimulus bill will, quote, significantly boost the economy, and 87% of those economists also agree that we could be back to pre-pandemic levels within a year. Critical to this timeline, though, is the proposed package getting passed quickly.
A significant portion of the spending is for vaccine distribution. And so there's kind of been this game in Washington about, do we need it or not? Let's wait and see. But we need the vaccine distribution funds right away. That's the biggest economic recovery tool we have right now.
Democrats are hoping for Republican support to quickly push the proposed stimulus relief through. Although with a majority in both the Senate and the House, they don't need it. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
Alicia, thank you. Now, finally in our lineup today, grades from the first half of the school year are now proof of the challenges that kids have had with remote learning. How experts say schools could be using the technology more effectively. Well, school districts across the country are in the second half of the year, and grades from the first half are reflecting the struggles that so many are having during this pandemic. The Associated Press says that schools nationwide are reporting 2 to 3 times more failing grades than in typical years. Teachers told the AP that students are skipping assignments in class more often. Now that some don't have the reliable internet that they need to complete and upload assignments. Teachers also say another issue, a lot of students are off camera, and that makes it difficult to identify who's actually struggling with the material. A longtime education researcher says schools have a major opportunity to use remote learning technology more effectively.
We know that people learn best by doing things, not just by listening to a presentation. A good use of this technology is to assign tasks for people to perform and then get off the screen and go do them.
Dr. Michael Allen has been studying education and its relationship with technology since the 1960s. He says teachers have to adapt their lesson plans for a remote learning environment. One idea to do that is to flip the classroom, he says. Have students prepare a lesson on a topic to present to the class.
It gets students so involved, they get excited because we get to be the teacher. We get to be the teacher. We can even put questions.
Dr. Allen believes that education should build a person's confidence in their skills so they can be prepared for the real world. His research found that e-learning can be an effective way to do that if the program is well developed.
People feel like it's more personal than the experience that they've had in the classroom because they're getting continuous attention, that everything is mapped around how well they're doing, what needs they have.
He says research has shown people forget they're even working with the computer in some cases. Dr. Allen thinks the pandemic will force districts to develop better remote learning plans moving forward. The housing market in our country, it is hot right now, and home buyers are looking for that extra edge, some even turning to a bit of an old school way of getting ahead, writing a personal letter.
They're kind of desperate to find what else can we do to get our offer accepted for this house that we love.
Yeah, that personal letter to the seller. So tomorrow, we're going to talk about some of the concerns about how these letters could lead to discrimination and the advice that they have for buyers and sellers from real estate groups.
Our temperature is going to be close to 40 tomorrow, but then this weekend, by Sunday morning, the wind chill will drop to about -12, and it will stay below 0 for much of our Sunday. There's a look at the cold air coming our way for the upcoming weekend. A little bit of snow early next week. Thanks for joining us at 5:30. The news at 6 starts